was beginning to question science and the scientific paradigm. So science used to be like a god, almost like a god to me, and suddenly I lost faith in my God. I was questioning my God. I was like, all science is based on assumptions, and these assumptions are predominantly about human nature. So how do we know about human beings? So that became like a very central question to me, and I could no longer trust science for its answers. I found the answers that science was capable of giving me very, very limited. So that religion was beginning to already shake. I feel extremely, extremely blessed because I see all the areas of life which were in crisis before I came to Mother and Sri Aurobindo. All of them have naturally found their true way of being and are constantly evolving. And yeah, now Mother and Sri Aurobindo, it's like breathing. Like how Manoj was saying, no, from that small little detail of life to that big worldview, everything is coming from Mother and Sri Aurobindo. So there's nothing that doesn't that falls out of the purview of yoga, so as to speak, no. And yeah, I just feel extremely, extremely blessed because yeah, she's just, the way she's working through in life is just beyond what I would have ever imagined, or what I could have ever possibly strategized, thought about implementing in life. Because yeah, the way she's moving things, the way she's creating things, the way she's moving inside of me, outside of me, that's just magic. And yeah, yoga has now really become like magical.
Seeing the world from that perspective of Mother and Sri Aurobindo's work in the world, and I see his words coming alive in the world, though it looks like the world is in a big mess, but it is that transformation that is happening, and it is his perspective that reveals what is unfolding. And without him, I know I will not have any clue about what is going on here. To me, it is a daily wonderment of how it is working through what appears to be chaos, what appears to be completely a complete collapse of the world and complete hopelessness from the mind's perspective. And to put aside that mind that is struggling to understand what is going on, and to enter into that deep silence and to just look at what that wants and surrender to it, and to drop all that preconditioned notions of the mind, whatsoever it understood, putting it aside, and then moment to moment surrendering to that force and see its action, a movement of harmony, a force that is so silent, so still, so vast, opening to it. And yeah, just flowing with it, enjoying being with it, collaborating, consciously understanding, loving, adoring. It's a pure blessing.
I was reading this book and I came to this passage that said, you know, religions are not about beliefs and dogma. They all started with an experience. And upon hearing that word, I looked up and I just knew without a shadow of a doubt that all of this, the very substance of everything, including this body and mind here, was God, which was an astonishing revelation for this lifelong agnostic atheist at that point. And the other thing that happened at that moment was I got this clear, very clear sense that my whole life work would involve some integration of psychology and spirituality. And not only that, it seemed like there was something familiar about this. That suddenly out of the blue, I had some sense, this is not altogether new. There's something to it. So let me jump ahead to the psychology spirituality part, which brings me to one of the ways I came to Sri Aurobindo. about 6 years later, in May 1976, a friend of mine handed me The Adventure of Consciousness, which many of you may know. It's one of the great biographies of Sri Aurobindo, really, although the mother plays a part in it. And I got to a chapter on consciousness. And about the second page, I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that what had come to me in 1970, 6 years before, was this very form of psychology, which has become known as integral psychology, that I had been somehow familiar with this. And this was to be my life work. And this led up some 25 years later to working with my wife, Jan, on a book on Sri Aurobindo, the mother's yoga psychology. And even today, 50 years later, an online course that Jan and I have spent several years working on really is exactly continuation of that first seed that was planted in 1970. Particularly when I found, I think in the early 60s, when the mother found that she used a mantra to really bring the force into the body, that mantra has stayed with me, whether consciously or not consciously invoking it. It has been there by grace, aligning this body-mind on this beautiful, magical, miraculous, sacred path that the Mother and Sri Aurobindo have brought to ease all of us struggling humanity into this new era, the new era of the sacred feminine. So I guess I just want to conclude by saying, I really see it all as a process of Mother's grace. It seemed for many years that somehow Don had made these choices and Don had followed his teacher and Don had found this book, but over the years you see it just does not work that way. And it's much more fun and much more blissful when you realize that you actually, no matter how dark it seems, you really are being carried in the hands of the Divine Mother through all the trials and tribulations, as well as the joys and delights of this rather strange, mysterious, and yet wonderful human life.